Nikke. I'm gonna be honest, this game kind of flew under the radar for me. Don't get me wrong, I knew when it came out, but primarily speaking, when it came out, the characters that were advertised were of a very different type than what I liked. Anise, for example, I don't like this character design, and I'm perfectly fine admitting that because I don't like the more sexualized character designs. Like, if for some reason, the more lewd the design itself, the less attracted to the character I am. Now, this doesn't mean that all these characters are bad. For instance, even though Red Hood has a hypersexualized design, I still find her to be a neat character. I like Soline, she's one of my favorites. Admi's okay. I thought I would like her more, but she's just okay. Same thing, honestly, with Leader. I do like Laplace a lot, as you can see here, and Epinel has been my favorite by far, and she has the least sexualized design. So speaking bluntly, I do think this is a fine game, but don't get me wrong, the gameplay of this game doesn't really interest me that much. I like the characters, I like the events, I like almost everything else outside of that. So it's kind of a Blue Archive situation to me. But the difference is, I can kind of comb through, and the gameplay is at the very least engaging enough if I want to pay attention to it. I can obviously over-level and kind of clear content extremely easily depending on the units I have. But I do think that one of the downsides is, and yes, I'm aware, this can be entirely based on the characters that you like and what you prefer in your character design. But the game does get lumped in with the whole aspect of it being an ass game. There's a lot of boobs and a lot of butts on screen depending on the characters you play. Like, especially once you're watching them in combat, yeah, I'm pretty sure most people would say this is a lot of jiggle physics on screen here. And that can be a turnoff for you. And it was for me for a long time because it looked just like, oh, it's a horny game, you know, you play it if you like boobs, if you like butts, and that's really it. And hey, for some that might be appealing, for me, it wasn't at the time. So I got into it really late, as you can see here. I didn't start until, like, I'd say a month, maybe 2 months ago at most. It can be based on like when you're actually watching this video, and this is on a global account. Obviously, I do have an NA account which I started with. So overall, I'd say my experience with the game has been nice. A lot of people point to the gacha aspect of the game itself being rewarding, and that you can, you know, wishlist units, and I do think this is fine. But I wouldn't say the game having a rewarding gacha is a reason to stick with it, nor is it a reason to go, because you can have a rewarding gacha theoretically and get just absolutely wrecked by it. You can also have a rewarding gacha and just not get the character you want. And yes, the wishlist does help that to a degree, but it doesn't alleviate all the problems. And I will perfectly and wholeheartedly admit, I'm not super late game. And there are aspects I'm just like, it's okay. Like, why doesn't my girl Epinel have a alt outfit? I feel like I deserve one at this point. Look at her, she's cute, she deserves one, it's great. Also, the lines you get in the lobby screen do change depending on your relationship level with the character. And obviously you unlock these specific screens, which are based around their bursts. Once you get them to, I'm not even gonna bother trying to name it. Once you see these stars, once you get 3 of them, they're good. Once you limit break them 3 times, you get those specific screens, so it's nice. But if you want to pass on a much later wall, you do want to limit break a few Nikke. The outpost system in the game, it's meh. Don't get me wrong, each building you have does have a unique purpose and does sometimes come with little unique interactions you can find all throughout the place, and that is nice in my opinion. It's interesting, it's fun to have, but it's nothing I'd say is on par with like Blue Archive's Cafe, if you like decorating, that is. Now the synchro device I do legitimately like because it only means you have to level up 5 units, and these are the 3 limit broken units, the 5 max limit broken units you have, as they can go beyond a certain level cap, and that can apply towards the rest of them. This means you're not spreading your resources out to level up everybody. Instead, you level up 5, and that can vaguely be transferred on to the rest of the units. Even if you're not necessarily using them, if you don't feel like they're worth the value or they are limit broken themselves, just find a few. For instance, I used to have my Red Hood leveled up, but instead I decided to level up Soline. And the benefit of this is you can reset the character's level, get back all the materials, and slide them over to somebody else. This does not necessarily apply to their skills and bursts and things like that, but those do come and go depending on the time. I'd say overall, it has been a fun experience. Now, I don't think this is something I'd say is on par with a lot of the other gachas that I played. Maybe it's not on par with Genshin or HSR or things like that. But for me personally, I've enjoyed it for the sole purpose of finding out if I like a unit's design and their story, because usually if I like the design, I'm gonna like the relationship storylines. And from the advisement list, I have enjoyed a few. Milk, I honestly like. She's a very cute character. I like her design, I like her story. Epinel, I've already mentioned. Soline, I found extremely cute. Laplace, the same goes. Leader was just okay, which I thought would be better. I like Exia, she's nice. She's a gamer. Now, obviously, I don't necessarily know how I feel about the design itself, but the benefit is if you do purchase the battle pass, you do get a skin, and that can be something you enjoy, I guess. I'm not particularly fond of this one. It's just I don't like it, so I'm not getting it. But you can. And I do like certain features. The molds you can buy that occasionally will give you an SSR or just an SSR if you're unlucky, they're unique. Now you can't wishlist them, so you do have a chance of getting one that you don't necessarily care for, but it's still a nice feature to have. The same thing goes for the mid-quality modes. I think the events, which I didn't participate in yet, at least not this one currently, the events are rather nice. If you skip the dialogue, then yeah, you don't really care about the story of the game, but I do think, in my opinion at least, the story of the game is good. I like Snow White from what I've seen, so far. And I do think that it strikes a very decent balance between having enough dialogue and enough story information to where you can get going and get the idea of the plot and move on without bogging you down to the extent to where you don't feel like you are having fun, or you feel like the fun and excitement of a mission or an event is kind of stopped by a paragraph of dialogue. I think this does that way better than Arknights, but I think Arknights has a lot of better things than this. But once again, it's up to you. It's up to personal perception. I would say that one of the main benefits, at least in my opinion, for Nikke and to playing this game, and I think one of the reasons that I would rather stick with this over something like AK though, is strictly because it has a PC launcher. A lot of gachas, most gachas, save for the Hoyoverse ones and Reverse 1999, do not have a PC launcher. And as much as it seems like a minor gripe, a lot of them don't work well with emulators. BlueStacks doesn't really like Arknights or Blue Archive that much, so it can be kind of sucky to get them going. And it also makes it even worse to try and record content, depending on the time. Like sometimes there have been days where I've sat down wanting to record Arknights, and it's like the emulator does not like this game, and I'm just like, you know what, who knows, we're getting an HSR video instead, because I don't want to deal with that today. And I think that having a PC launcher makes it much better. Now, yeah, don't get me wrong. Certain screens like these ones, they were obviously made for mobile phone devices, whether that's a tablet or whether that's a phone. If you're playing Nikke on iPad, you know that it auto rotates to a portrait mode, not a landscape mode. And so these don't naturally fit in that orientation. The same thing applies to desktop. But even still, the fact that it has a working PC launcher with everything being accessible via mouse controls is nice. I do wish I could change this background, don't get me wrong, but I do overall have a more positive perception of this game than something like HSR or AK. Would I recommend this to you? It depends. If you aren't a fan of any of the designs, and if you do wonder if you should get into the game, my recommendation is you can go to Pridwood, you can go to Nikke.gg, or you can download the game and just go to Wikipedia and scroll through all of these characters to see if there's a design you like. I picked out a few that I was like, this is cute, but for me at least, because I'm not really too into the meta, I can just kind of sit around and wait for a character whose design I really like and go for them. Miranda, for example, she's cute. Solene was one of my wanted ones. So I can kind of sit around and just wait for a character who meets the standards that I personally look for within units. You might not enjoy that. And if that is the case, it's perfectly fine to skip out on this. I would say though, it's worth a shot. It's also a situation to where it's easier early game, and I think that you feel like you're making a lot more progress early game than you are towards the later end of things, especially regarding to unit gearing and things like that. But who knows? Shop-wise, there's a lot of things you can buy, including custom packages. I will hold off my thoughts into shop because obviously I haven't gotten to a stage under which I need materials like these, so I don't know how valuable they are. But if I continue playing this game and I do get into a long-term stage where I'm actually much later on and I do have a much deeper understanding with this, I will go in depth and actually talk about the shop because it does get a lot of things. And you do have the option to directly purchase outfits. Now don't get me wrong, some of them are featured within a battle pass or the mission pass system, so that can change your perspective, but if you really like a character, you can just buy the skin. But obviously that depends on your enjoyment of the unit. I think the skins in this game are nice, I just haven't gotten one for FNL, so I don't care for them. Overall, I'd say that Nikke gets a bad rep just for the amount of ass and boob that are on screen. I do understand that can push people away. I do recommend you try it anyway. I do think it's quite nice that you do get a theoretically free banner with the friendship pulls that you get, and it is nice. Obviously, you can't wishlist anything on it, so it's kind of a downside, but nonetheless, it's still fine to at least have a chance of getting an SSR that you may want. I'd say just give it a shot. Honestly, I enjoy it. I don't play it every single day. I maybe hop on every other day, and it's still been a nice experience. I do think that the rewarding nature of the gacha can be juxtapositioned against the fact that you don't necessarily have that full-on guarantee until you buy them from the shop here, but you can get lucky. You can also get unlucky. So it depends on how you look at it. Either way, I'd say it's a fun game. I recommend it, and I'll see you next time. I'm for Epinel, and goodbye.